Let's catch up now with John Kehoe, who's the economics editor of the Australian Financial Review. And I want to get his take on what's happening in Canberra next week. He joins us from the nation's capital. Good to talk to you again, John. Tell us, to what extent do you think that this economic reform roundtable once was a productivity roundtable? To what extent do you think the outcomes are predetermined?
Oh, look, Chris, I think in all these sorts of summits and roundtables, there's a little bit of pre-preparation and planning for how the government's going to respond, and people are putting forward submissions. We know what their sort of positions generally are. So I think it's natural that the government sort of has a bit of a pre-planned position on a range of issues. I don't get the sense it's a complete stitch-up like the Jobs and Skills Summit in 2022, where Labor and the unions, it just really ambushed business on a whole lot of union-friendly industrial relations changes. I do get the sense there's a little more goodwill, although business is still very wary from that experience 3 years ago.
Let's have a look at what the Prime Minister had to say about this today.
We encourage people to come forward with ideas. We don't want to have a rule-in, rule-out game. I've said before, I've quoted what is, I think, a pretty good quote historically, which is, if you think you're the smartest in the room, you're in the wrong room. We want to open things up. We want to hear from people. Any ideas that you have for reform, we're happy to hear as well.
Yeah, let's hope he's true to that word. As you say, John, it's natural that they would look at some of those things they can do. Already the Prime Minister's talked about low-hanging fruit. To what extent do you think that business in particular might also look at this as an opportunity, not to get instant outcomes, but try and get the government focused on some things like cutting red tape and regulation, perhaps looking to some meaningful company tax reform?
Yeah. Look, I think the big agreement point is going to be like streamlining a lot of the red tape, the approvals for housing, other parts of the economy, infrastructure and stuff as well. We can probably all agree that, the left, the right, the unions, business, it's just too damn slow to build things in this country. But I mean, even with that, you can get agreement at the politician and bureaucratic level, but it's actually in the implementation, the doing, that really matters.
Yep.
It's got to filter down to the local councils, the state governments, the bureaucrats here in Canberra who are sort of, you know, assessing environmental approvals and things like that. So the proof will actually be in them eating, and we won't immediately know if that's been successful. And I suspect it's easier said than done. On tax reform, I mean, the Prime Minister's been pretty clear he's not up for making major tax changes that he didn't take to the last election. He's not up for changing the GST. And also, one other thing that's off the table here, Chris, at least from a business perspective, the government is sort of basically saying, well, we're not going to undo our industrial relations changes. We're not going to have more flexibility in the workplace, even though the unions are actually free to come to the table now and propose kind of idealistic things like 4-day work weeks and things like that.
Yeah, labour market reform is the big one. If you don't talk about that, you're not serious about productivity, sadly. John, while I got you, I want to go back to a topic where I think your reporting has been outstanding over a number of months, and I've been keen to talk to you about it. Here's one of your articles talking about how productivity is dragged down by government jobs and by NDIS jobs. And you've come up with a statistic that 4 in 5 of the jobs created over the past 2 years have been in the non-market sector, which are occupations and industries heavily influenced by government spending and regulation. Now, sure, carers and aged care workers and nurses, we understand they're very important jobs, but when you look at the NDIS in particular, there's an enormous amount, an increasing amount of the workforce and government spending going into non-productive parts of the economy.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chris, these are not just my stats. These are from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. So these are very official and legitimate. So 80% of the jobs created over the last 2 years, non-market economy jobs, as you say, it's sort of aged care, disability support, education, healthcare, and then bureaucracy's gotten a lot bigger as well at the federal and state level too, and safety roles and things like this. But anyway, look, it is a bit of an issue. No doubt, a lot of those jobs are necessary. They're service jobs, helping people, all that. But the NDIS for mine's the big one. There's a lot of resources being channelled into it, $52 billion a year now of taxpayer money. And you hear all sorts of stories and see newspaper stories about how the money's being wasted, not efficiently well spent. And at the same time, we're running what's known as a full employment economy, where unemployment today, 4.2%, businesses still struggling to get workers. And so what it means is that productive parts of the economy, like the market business sector, are struggling to find the workers they need and have to pay higher wages because a lot of it's being sucked into this less productive sector. And the non-market share of the economy, it hasn't had any productivity growth for 2 decades, whereas actually the market sector of the economy, the labour market there, it's basically back to sort of normal trend growth in productivity. So that's the big difference. That's why we've got really flatlining productivity.
It's a massive issue, John, and look forward to reading more of your reporting on it. Thanks for joining us. John Kehoe there, the economics editor of the Australian Financial Review.